help 400,000 more kids across the country have full bellies as they start their school day. These are investments that they're opposed to, that we are there to help Canadians with.
And 2 million Canadians are lined up every month. Mr. Speaker, with so many empty stomachs, isn't it just a little bit wacko to be raising carbon taxes on farmers and food?
Blockades are harming our economy and endangering public safety. Critical supply chains have been disrupted.
It's called the principle of restraint. The judges are forced to give the maximum leniency to the newly arrested criminal.
Well, the shockwaves are spreading in a major diplomatic standoff between Canada and India.
Did you notice the moment? The Prime Minister's true colors were finally exposed during a debate that left Canadians in shock. But what exactly did Pierre Poilievre say to set off such a violent outburst? And more importantly, what does this meltdown mean for Canadian politics going forward? The tension in Parliament was palpable when Pierre Poilievre questioned Prime Minister Trudeau, probing questions regarding the skyrocketing costs of homes and rents. Watch now to see the hidden truths behind this unforgettable showdown. You might use a knife to cut the air, but what happened next shocked everyone in the room because no one could have foreseen it. In a sudden fit of fury, Trudeau attacked Poilievre with a flurry of personal attacks. The Prime Minister's painstakingly built facade of authority and calm was shattered in an instant when Trudeau yelled, "Can he even keep his fellow MPs safe?" His voice trembled with rage. It was a shocking insult that had nothing to do with housing policy. His face turned beet red, and his neck bulged with veins.
Shockwaves are spreading in a major diplomatic standoff between Canada and India.
They know that even if they're caught, they'll be released on bail within minutes.
Activities that pose a significant threat to public safety.
It's called the principle of restraint. The judges are forced to give the maximum leniency to the newly arrested criminal.
That agents of the government of India have engaged in and continue to engage.
After some time, body language experts confirmed what the audience already knew. Trudeau had gone completely insane. His erratic movements and combative voice revealed a man who had reached his breaking point. The polished politician that Canadians had grown accustomed to seeing was gone, replaced by a leader who was crumbling in front of them on screen. During this explosive moment, Trudeau's true nature was revealed in a way never seen before. Instead of facing the issues, he reacted like a cornered animal when asked difficult questions about his shortcomings. This was a desperate attempt to change the subject by someone who had something to hide, but you will be shocked to hear what really caused the Prime Minister to lose it so spectacularly. There were other factors besides Poilievre's persistent criticism of liberal housing policies.
Mandatory prison sentences to lock up the criminals and stop the crime.
It would be slightly more credible to hear the Conservatives concerned about the challenges Canadians are facing.
Now the pressure is on the government to get deals in place with provinces and territories. CTV's Rachel Aiello on where the drug plan goes from here.
He knows his government's reaction to the housing crisis has been a total disaster. So even though it was definitely a contributing factor, there is far more devastating evidence. Trudeau became unmanageable as homelessness rises and young Canadians give up on ever owning a home. Trudeau has no answers. While the nation was appalled by Trudeau's collapse, his outburst was a pitiful attempt to deflect attention from his own ineptitude. Poilievre's response was what ultimately changed the course of events. Armed with devastating knowledge about Canada's housing catastrophe, the Conservative leader was ready to make a radical 180-degree turnabout.
400,000 more kids across the country have full bellies as they start their school day. These are investments that they're opposed to, that we are there to help Canadians.
How many Canadians do you think are sleeping on the streets as a result of Trudeau's failed policies? Pierre Poilievre straightened up. The Liberal leader was left spinning in his seat as PV, cool as a cucumber, launched a vicious attack on Trudeau's awful housing policies, while Trudeau's outburst cooled, emanating a cool assurance that made the Prime Minister look like a whining child. PV didn't hold back when he gave Trudeau a shocking statistic that stunned Parliament during his tenure. Homelessness in Canada has risen by an incredible 38%. Is it not remarkable that after more than a decade in office, Trudeau has completely failed to provide housing for Canadians?
The killing of a Canadian on Canadian soil is not something that we can ignore.
PV reiterated today that a Conservative government would not proceed with what he believes to be a flawed proposal after voting against the measure. Although the murder of a Canadian on Canadian territory cannot be disregarded, Trudeau was merely the first to unleash a flood of information that revealed his incompetence. A generation of young Canadians have given up on the goal of owning a home, and Trudeau is to blame for this. With each devastating blow, the Prime Minister's face grew redder. Desperate to change the subject, Trudeau tried to steer the conversation back to national security PEV, but he was unsuccessful. Instead, he deftly steered the conversation back to the housing crisis, exposing Trudeau's weak attempt at diversion. PEV struck the knockout blow by putting forth his plan to reduce the GST on newly built homes under $1 million. Because it was a reasonable strategy, the Builders Association called it the most significant housing statement in 20 years. Trudeau was left stuttering because he couldn't make a strong case against this groundbreaking concept.
Going to have a single payer system that bans you and union workers and countless other people from keeping the excellent private plans they already have.
Blockades are harming our economy and endangering public safety. Critical supply chains have been disrupted.
I don't think any criminals take any charges seriously after 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP Liberal.
Pin could be heard. DR in the chamber as PEV made his last devastating argument. He showed the huge difference between Trudeau's empty rhetoric and his viable solutions. The ferocious dispute between Trudeau and PEV left the Prime Minister, who typically makes a powerful return, absolutely astonished. It will go down as a pivotal moment in Canadian political history. The Prime Minister was astonished by Poilievre's masterful overthrow, and Trudeau's breakdown exposed his weakness. Canadians are demanding realistic solutions to the housing crisis, which is a serious issue right now. Was Trudeau's frantic outburst or PEV's cool demolition of Liberal projects the real winner of this historic battle? Write a comment below with your opinions. The consequences of this conversation are far from over. You'll be surprised by what you hear next. In our next movie, we'll reveal the backstage drama that led to this momentous meeting. You won't want to miss the shocking revelations about PEV's secret plan and sincere intentions.